Hello everyone. Hey, surprise stream. I'm just testing microphone. I'll go back and listen to this stream later and see how the levels are and whether I need to change and tweak anything. But as you can see right here, got the new microphone. I'm going to try and lift it out of my face so that it's not in the screen. But yeah, I got a new microphone. Does that make me a pro streamer? I think it might. Well, I wasn't really planning on tying anything and just wanted to test the microphone, test how it sounds, test, if I look away and I talk to my feathers. I have a bunch of feathers right here just off the side of the screen. If I talk to my feathers, how does it sound? If I'm reaching for tools or whatever, does it sound okay? But yeah, I'm super excited. I'm going to try not to talk to the microphone, talk to you guys. But while we're here, might as well tie something. Gonna pull out my the tray, the storage tray out of my tool case that has all my hooks, and I'm just gonna pull something out here. What do we feel like tying today? I just sold a Thunder and Lightning out of my Etsy shop. Thank you to the person who purchased it. Purchases out of my Etsy shop like that make things like new microphone possible. Yeah, so let's just tie a real quick you gotta remember not to talk to the case. Microphone's here. Let's just tie a real quick something. I've been seeing around on the internet some really nice renderings or variations on Thunder and Lightning. I think, like usual, I'm going to split it up between the body and the wing, just because, it's a weekday. I don't want to take up much of your time, but I do want to try out the new microphone. This is the perfect time to do it. So maybe let's do... we could do a Thunder and Lightning, or we could do, something like a Fiery Brown, or just something a little bit simple to break in the new microphone. Simple, but attractive. I have to say, the Irish patterns are really, really nice. Irish patterns, like the Thunder and Lightning, are definitely some of my favorites. The Blue Jay patterns, or the Jay patterns, the Claret Jay, the Black Jay, some of my all-time favorite patterns. Let's see, what do we got? I'm just browsing. I've got an online catalog of patterns, and I'm just quickly doing a quick scan through just to see if anything in particular catches my fancy. Is something quick, easy, and nice to tie. Thunder and Lightnings are popular. Like I said, I've seen a whole bunch of recently seen a whole bunch of really nice variants done. So I think I probably want to do something a little bit different. I've been seeing a lot of really nice March Browns as well. The hook that I have is maybe a little too big for March Brown. It's a 1/0, but it's a slightly over or long shanked 1/0. Let me see. Yeah, like I said, I don't have a plan for this stream. I just wanted to try out the new mic. And, if you're hanging around to see me tie a fly, thanks for sticking with me. Promise you, I'll tie something. Aha, that's attractive. All right, so there is a fly out of Pryce-Tannat, which is called the Green Peacock. And yeah, let's tie this. I think I might even be able to tie it. Well, do I have pale blue heckle? I do have pale blue heckle. I did a resupply. You might have seen my Instagram posts on the resupply. However, unfortunately, John feathersmc.com didn't have like just blue, regular blue hackle available. Let's see, how in frame am I? Yeah, no, that seems like worse. All right. I'm trying to center the hook on my body and in the screen. So, all right. So this is blind eye. We're gonna have to soak some gut. And I suppose I could tie this on an eyed hook. Just for the sake of time, I actually am going to tie this on an eyed hook. I have some very generous friends and some very beautiful eyed hooks, vintage antique eyed hooks. I want this to be a little bit larger, so I think I'm going to. Wrong box. So I have here some 2-aught mustad, vintage mustad. This is a 3391. I normally use 3391s as the basis for reworked hooks. They are very attractive. There you go. You can hear the neighbor's kid has a like tricycle or something with like bells or something. Hopefully you can't hear that through the mic, although I'm willing to bet you probably can. Yeah, the neighbor's kids have been absolutely stir crazy with the stay-at-home order. All right. Well, so I don't need, but I do need I do need an underbody. I'm going to use my standard Unistretch. Again, I'm using gray because that's what was available at the fly shop. I got this at. White would be better, but I haven't actually noticed the gray showing through like silk bodies, so yeah, maybe getting away with it. Like I said, this stream is mostly just to test the new microphone. So I'm going to be turning my head every which way and talking just to see how well the microphone performs. It seems to be picking me up pretty well based on the levels. Just going to try turning down the microphone a little bit. The levels look a little bit high compared to my normal stream. But I'm super excited. And like I said, this microphone really made possible by the generous purchases that people have made on my Etsy shop, whether they're viewers or not. We definitely appreciate it. Oops. Move my trash can. It's cleaning. Unfortunately, I think the thing that might be challenging about a mic is that you might be able to hear everything, including, the wrapping thread, the sound of wrapping thread. Which is kind of a strange thing I've never thought about. There's a sound that is made when you wrap thread on a bare shank or under pretty good tension. And yeah. So I won't give it too much of an underbody. I think maybe it will need 3 passes though. This is it's a regular full up floss body, so you want a little bit of extra bulk underneath the body. And I like one of the reasons to use an underbody. One of the reasons to use an underbody under a floss body is then you don't need to use so much floss. And for those of you who are trying to achieve, like the platonic ideal of a glassy, smooth floss body, the thinner layers of floss that you apply, the easier it is to make them glassy smooth, just by while wrapping them. However, at the same time, wrapping like a single ply of JEC silk does not add a whole lot of bulk to your body, and frankly, a lot of people achieve really glassy, smooth bodies, but their bodies look really anemic. Like there's not enough substance to them, and that's not visually appealing. It's the body doesn't have quite the same impact, and that's too bad because a lot of these bodies are very elaborate, or they're very like I said, a lot of people achieve really nice glassy smooth bodies, but they're too thin, so you don't really notice that. If you're going to tie a fancy body or a body that's really well done, then you want people to see it. So by putting an underbody, you just add a little bit of extra bulk, and you can tie a really nice body on top of the underbody, or a really nice layer of nice silk on top of the underbody, without worrying that you're not giving your body your fly enough bulk. Like I said, I don't really care for glassy smooth silk bodies. A little bit over that. I think they're nice and they show off a good technical prowess, but from like a visual appeal standpoint, I prefer bodies with a little bit more texture. It's one reason why I like pig's wool over seal's wool, but pig's wool is hard to get. It's definitely why I prefer seal's wool over any kind of synthetic. Uh, seal's wool just has like a natural sparkle that has a lot more depth than a synthetic. But by the same token, I prefer coarser silks, so like the French style silks. Um, I prefer you know not to smooth out my bodies. Um, if you can see the wraps in them, that's just an added little bit of dynamicism. Ugh. It's a little extra movement in the body. Um, so you know, and I've even gone so in the past so far as to give my silks a half twist or a quarter twist while wrapping them, and that gives kind of like a nice consistent pattern of texture to the body. Um, I don't do that so much anymore, just because that took a lot of thinking and coordination. That frankly, the result was pretty subtle. You had to look at a fly pretty close to see it. Uh, so these days I just wrap a nice, even, smooth body, but I don't polish it. And that's good enough. Now, the importance of the underbody is how smooth the underbody is, because the underbody will determine how smooth anything that goes on top of it is or goes on. And it's not like smooth as in like I can see the fibers of this unistretch. Um, like the fibers are there. Yeah, I think this thing keeps sagging a little bit. Like the fibers are there. Like I can see the fibers, but um, the overall, like the taper from the tag to the head is very smoothly done, and that's important because if there are any like big dips or gullies in your underbody, those will come through in your body. The textural thing you can correct just with the silk, um, but like if you have uh, you know if your underbody is like rolling or has like lumps in it, then that will come through the silk no matter what you do. So I'm just constantly flattening my thread. That's what you see me do by twisting my bobbin, constantly flattening my thread, and just making sure all of my wraps are side by side. No overlap, just side by side wraps. And then obviously I'm not going to crowd my head because I'll crowd the head later. We'll finish the underbody thread, stretch. Oh, I didn't think I might be out of light blue silk. I'm not out of light blue silk. I'm out of light green silk. Okay, let's see. So first things first, tip and tag. Tip is silver wire. I'm going to use fine silver tinsel and golden yellow floss. Pretty standard. Again, um, I have my shank just about level. I'm going to use my bobbin and thread as like a plumb bob. Find the place where I want my tag to end, and then I'm just going to wrap my thread down the bend towards the tag, tie in for the tag. Nice smooth. This is 70 denier ultra thread, so it um, smooths out the the coarseness of the unistretch um, really well. Um, just like the unistretch, though, you still have to flatten it with every turn. Um, Excellent. So I have some very nice, extra fine, round silver tinsel. That I'm going to use. And because it is so fine, I'm actually going to use, normally on a tip, you'd probably do, 4 or 5 turns on a, display fly. You might do as few as 3 if, you're just doing like a wire tip on a fishing fly. On fishing flies, I frequently use um, just fishing or who makes it? Is this Ultra? Yes. So on a fishing fly, I often use just ultra wire um, instead of tinsel. It's more durable, uh, but you only need for a tip. You only need like 3 turns. On a display fly using extra fine, round tinsel, you're gonna need a few more. I'll probably do between 5 and 7, and it's all just kind of proportions to how long the tip is. Um, I like to say I want the tip to be at least 1/3, 1/4 to 1/3 of the total length of the tip and tag. No, that's wrong. I want the tip to be 1/4 of the whole length of tip and tag, um, or 1/3 of just the tag. There we go. Uh, you don't really need to count them. It's just I've gotten used to knowing, how many turns of tinsel gives me a certain length of tip. Um, and then again, everything gets bound down on the back side of the hook, so you're not creating any bulk above or below the shank, because you don't want bulk in the bend of the hook if you can help it. I want all my bulk to be somewhere else until I hit the actual body proper. Once I get into the shank, the flat shank area, then I can tie things on underneath, because then the bulk doesn't matter so much. But right there in the bend of the hook, um, even a little bit of bulk can really show, um, and leave a kind of unsightly mark. All right. Golden yellow. Floss tag. Pretty standard stuff. Just going to turn on and advance my thread to get out of the way. This is JEC silk. Ties on a little bit finer, which is nice for tags. It's been really hard to find Legarten silk or French, any kind of French silk recently. Uh, so I've mostly switched to using JEC silks, which are nice. But, like I said earlier, I kind of like a more robust silk for tying because I think it gives it a little bit more texture. Um, so, uh, you know, it is what it is. The JEC silks, Japanese silks, tie just beautifully. They're beautiful to work with. I just think the end result is great if you like that particular aesthetic of a glossy smooth finish to the body, which I'm not particularly beholden to. All right, so this has a tail, which is a topping, like always. That one's quite twisted. Um, okay, and then as usual, I'm going to prepare my topping for the tail by pulling out the excess fluff at the bottom and just trimming it down to stubble. I'm not going to pull it off. I'm just going to trim it down to stubble because that stubble helps secure the tail. Then I'm just going to give the tie-in the tie-in point on the feather, just a little bit of a flatten, just to bring out, because there's a little bit of excess curve right there at the tie-in point. So then I have a nice flat tail. I'm going to do a single turn thread, and I'm going to tie in the rib. And the reason why I'm being very careful with my thread wraps here is because in this pattern there is no butt. There's nothing to cover up the bump that you're going to get from tying in materials at the back end of this fly. So I'm going to be I'm going to be very careful with my thread wraps here at the back end of this fly. Now I'm using this beautiful vintage medium oval tinsel. I would actually say probably by modern standpoints, I would almost consider this a large oval tinsel. It's very robust. Uh, my experience with it, I have some gold version of this, and it is very thick, and it ties like it's very thick, meaning it doesn't quite want to. It wants to twist as you wrap it on, so that's just something to watch for. Just means there's a little extra tension in the core, I think, when they wound it. Like the core's got its own twist. Just gonna trim the tail, trim it as kind of tapered as possible. If there's any little extra fuzzies hanging out, that's not such a big deal because you can bind them down with the floss. Just remember that any little bumps, any little divots or gullies or um, any roll to the underbody will show through the silk when you lay it on. And the same goes for anything you tie down. So, just want to be as careful as possible. Keep wondering. I think this boom is actually coming off the place where I had secured it. Oh, I might need to find an alternative way to attach it to this. Or, hold that on. but we will deal with that after this stream. I'm just gonna have to try and keep knocking it. Just give me a second. I'm going to try and fix the mic boom because that keeps slipping, and I'm a little bit afraid it's going to fall over and hit me in the face. So let me just do that real quick. Okay. Okay, so that is a lot more secure, but it also is now in the way of a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm going to have to just work out the best way to secure that for future streams. But it seems to be working well. It's not in the way. I've managed to keep it out of frame pretty well. So, yeah. So far, so good. So I can crowd the eye of the fly just a little bit, because the only thing that this has is a throat hackle and a peacock sword wing. So there's nothing else to go in front of it. So I'm going to take the body straight up to here. It's going to require a little bit more silk than normal. And I'm going to tie 2-ply, just because this body doesn't have a hackle, and so I want this body to have a little bit more oomph. What do I want to tie 2-ply? Two ply is a lot. Also, two ply doesn't go on very. Unlike toilet paper, two ply silk doesn't go on very well. All right. So we'll just do one ply. Um, just to not be wasteful. Fortunately, both the French silks and the JEC silks split, the plies split fairly well. So, and actually, each of the primary plies uh, could be split even further, although there's not definitive sub plies. At least not in the French silks. The JECs might have one or two sub plies, or sorry, two or three rather. I don't normally split them beyond. Well, the JECs I usually use straight off the roll. And the French silks usually do need to be split, at least because they're three plies, and well, like I said, the more plies you use, the more difficult it is to get a smooth body. And even when you want a slightly textured body, like I do, it's still good to wrap single plies because um, uh, it's easier to control, the thickness. So I want an even thickness of silk up and down. And if I'm using two plies, then it's just a little bit harder to make sure that the silk is either flattened or textured evenly, depending on how you're rolling it or winding it. Just a little bit of a bump where my tail is tied in, but it's not the worst it could be. Once I have way too much floss. Normally I'm running low at this point in the body, so I'm a little bit grateful that I cut so much off because this never happens. All right. Unwind all the way to the tie-in point. The floss is holding itself. A couple of wraps just to scare it. trim it. Just gonna pull off couple fuzzies. One thing about the French silk is even though it's a coarser floss, the actual like fibers that make it up are a little bit finer, and they're a little bit less polished, and so they usually are a little bit fuzzy, or wind on a little bit fuzzy compared to the Japanese silks. Not a big deal. Um, Now I'm going to hide the bump where the tail was tied in using the ribbing. I'm going to do 7 ribs. Normally I only do 5, but I'm going to do 7 because there's no hackle. Um, and by doing a few extra, yeah, and this is a slightly longer body as well because again there's no hackle. So by doing a few extra, I'm just going to lend it a little bit of extra visual interest here. And as I said, this vintage oval tinsel has an extra like power to twist. You can feel like the core has like an extra or like counter twist to it. That's okay because it wound on just fine this time. Looks nice. Looks great. Just going to find that tag end. So yeah, simple. Next is a throat hackle, and it's a pale blue throat hackle, the same color as the body. Into the tool chest, into my giant bag of chicken hackle. I guess this is rooster hackle. Pale blue or light blue. Also from John at feathersmc.com. I'm not sponsored, but man, maybe I ought to be. Now, because this is just a throat hackle, I can use a hackle that would otherwise be unsuitable for the body. In a body hackle, I want something that has a very nice taper to it. For a throat hackle, taper doesn't matter so much. Also, I'm going to tie in a slightly longer throat hackle because there's only a throat hackle. I can to add a little bit of bulk to the throat under the body or around the body. I'll use a slightly longer hackle in this case. The other thing is I don't have to match the taper of a body hackle. Keep dropping them. All right. Just going to prepare my hackle. So nice pale blue hackle. Grasp it by the tip. Pull the fibers down. So as you can see, this hackle doesn't have that much of a taper, which makes it perfect for just tying in the throat. Before I tie it in, I'm going to wax my thread, as usual. Cobbler's wax. I suppose I ought to switch to black thread right now, but for the sake of time, I'm not. I'll just wax my thread extra heavy. I've got black cobbler's wax. That works. bind this on, wax thread, make sure it doesn't pull out. And then just fold the hackle. So I'm going to take my thumb, and you can use your forefinger or middle finger. I use my middle finger. And holding the hackle out like this, the way I tie in my hackles, this side are the hackles that need to be folded under. And so I'm going to pull those fibers across and just fold them. So I'm just gently folding, pulling those fibers across the stem so they fold. And they won't be inclined to stay, but as long as they have a slight, inclination towards the other side, then when you wind it, those fibers won't get caught under the stem going forward. So I'm winding, and you can see that even though some of these fibers don't want to, they're not going to fold like that. They'll be like this as you wind them. But even just this, as you wind it, make sure that and you can always help it as you wind, just by pulling the fibers back. I could, and maybe should, use hackle pliers here, but yeah. I'm going to make this nice and full again because there's no body hackle. There's no other bulk underneath the hook. So I'm going to wind this up to 11. Gently. So as I wrap my thread to tie off the hackle, I want to move it through the fibers. Just to move them out of the way, I move my thread back and forth. Talking too much. Trim it, and then any hackle fibers that are pointing in the wrong direction can be swept backwards. And if you wrap in front of them, not over them, just in front of them, everything gets tied down. There we go. And that's a simple throat/shoulder hackle. Now I could pull the hackle down like this. I don't see a need for it. Yeah, I really don't. I like the way it looks just fine. I don't need to go through the extra effort of trying to fold the hackle under the body. I don't think it crowds the wing. Some people will say you need to make space for the wing, and okay, but a properly tied in wing will fit anyway. Now, one thing I will need to do is just build up a little bit of bulk right in front of the hackle, right in front of the shoulder or throat, just to make sure the wing can clear the stem of the hackle. Then I have peacock sword, right and left. You could. I know that there are people who tie these in, as the same way as slips. So a right slip and a left slip. And it does make for a very attractive wing. I'm more of a buncher. I pick a right and a left so that they balance each other. But as long as all of the forces, so as you can see, these have a slight curve to them. As long as the forces all kind of meet in the middle, you'll end up with a nice bunched wing. And because I want this to have a very full wing and not like a thin, like a tall, thin wing, I think bunching will work the best. Also, these are slightly different color, and I want the colors to average out as well as the forces. So cut a fairly large bunch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them all together and kind of mix them up, roll them together so the rights and the lefts are all mixed up. Again, because these aren't marrying, um, you know, there's nothing to hold the wing together. Like so. Here's the bunch. I'm just gonna roll it between my fingers, just to mix the rights and the lefts, so that again, all the forces in the wing average out and it becomes one unified and compact bunch. And then just kind of find a nice way to tie it in. Soft loop it, a little bit of compression. Some of these might be a little bit short, so I'm going to tease them just a little bit. And when doing like a large bundled wing, like a hair wing or something, if you want the wing to tie in and not slide forward, you can always just pull the wing back as you tie it in, and that'll draw the thread wraps right up to the vertical instead of letting them slide forward. So I'm going to trim the butt ends. Because that's such a thick wing, of course, I'm going to wax nuts. Man, I've really done a number on this unit or ultra thread. Probably need to start a new. For some unknown reason, this particular spool of ultra thread has become extraordinarily beat up. Sounds like an excuse, but it's true. It's fuzzy on the spool, and I think I probably need to just cut my losses, start a new spool of this, because see, that keeps happening. I'm afraid I don't want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just wax. Okay, excellent. Just trim that up. Nice, tidy, compact head. Nice, smooth wraps. And then simply finish this. Tie it off. So in the whole chaos of breaking my thread a couple of times, we kind of lost its cohesion a little bit, but that's okay. It'll look rustic. That's what they say on the Great British Baking Show, right? It looks rustic. That's fine. Give it a layer of Kelson's formula. Stuff is made by Bill Bailey to the recipe provided in Kelson's treatise. Um, all right, so here is the Green Peacock from Pryce-Tannat. Nice, pretty, simple salmon fly. Um, tied on a 2-aught Mustad. 33.91, I believe. And got the new mic. Had to figure some stuff out. Thanks for hanging out with me on this such short notice stream. Yeah, I was just excited to try out the new mic. Thank you to the people who purchased things off my Etsy. Again, this mic is because of those purchases. And I really appreciate it. My Etsy is Studio1213. If you'd like to check out some of my other work, I'm on Instagram at justwondering.brad. I'm running a giveaway on my Instagram. When I reach 500 followers, I'm going to hold a little bit of a contest, and we're going to give away some of my flies, some of my fishing quality flies. I actually think that Green Peacock might be one of them. So go follow me on Instagram, and when I hit 500 followers, there will be a giveaway. And yeah, I normally stream Saturdays. I just changed my stream time on Saturdays to try and accommodate the people on the West Coast. So I'll be streaming at 1 p.m. on Saturday. That's Eastern Standard Time. And hope to see you there. Come by, stop in, say hello. Feel free to ask me any questions. You can shoot me questions on my Instagram. You can look up Just Wondering's Flies on Facebook, and you can ask me questions that way, or you can comment on this video. Yeah, and if you enjoy what you see, like, comment, subscribe, get notified when I go live. And thanks for hanging out, and have a good week.